All right. So today we're going to do the transaction process from A to Z. And my thoughts were, like from start to finish, both sides, like who calls the HOA, who orders the HOA does, who opens escrow, like all of that kind of stuff. So originally I was going to do it in two parts, the listing side transitioning to buyers and then the buyer side. But I was like, you know what, I'm just going to make it all kind of flow together. So we're going to have this first one, the listing process A to Z is what we're going to go over first. And then we'll incorporate all the other documents in that afterwards. But okay, so as a listing agent, your job, and these are like pretty much your duties, and then when you flip it over, it goes into the buyer side. But basically, your duty is your responsibility when you're doing the transaction. So your job as a listing agent is to do your listing appointment, but pull your tax record, and then you're going to do your comps, right? Then you're going to make a list of the upgrades. It is your job to do that. You don't just ask the seller, like, hey, what upgrades do you have in your house? They'll give you a general idea, but they might not think that their baseboards are upgraded. Like, anything that you can note as an upgrade is huge, so your job is to walk around that house and look for the upgrades. It's also your job to walk around and look for any repairs, because they live in it, so they see past it every day. So your job is like, oh, hey, we have a water stain up here. Oh, these light bulbs are out. Like, oh, I turned them out because I don't like that much bright. Okay, well, do they work? They need to be replaced before we go on the market. So those are your jobs, your duties as well. HOA information. So before you list a property, you're going to want to call the HOA, and because they'll tell you, oh, my fees, my monthly charge is $68. So what does it cover? Is that monthly? Is it quarterly? Sometimes they're like, I don't know, I just write the check. Like, they don't realize. Come on in. And you can just grab one of those packets and then sign in for me there. And then you always want to call the title company or email them and get a property profile. It's just going to give you information about the house, if there are any liens on there, any encumbrances, whatever is going on with that property. If they're in foreclosure, I had a client one time, she's like, nope, everything's good. Well, she hadn't paid in like 9 months, so there was a foreclosure. Like, they just don't tell you everything. They think that they think that you're going to not notice, and then they'll fix it at the end. But no, you need to know that up front, because it's all about time frame and stuff like that. So you're going to call the HOA and ask them, what's the monthly fee? What does that cover? Is there a buyer transfer fee? That was in one of the listing class that I had. So all those questions, if you need them, they're in another one. But you're going to ask them all that stuff before you go on the market, because it is important. Because if there's a $350 transfer fee, you want to negotiate that out when you get the offer. So you don't want to wait, and then all of a sudden the buyer's like, hey, well, I put the seller to pay for all that. Now you have to tell your seller, hey, there's an extra $350 charge. Or the buyers are like, wait, I didn't know there was a $1,000 setup fee. Like, we don't want to pay that, and you could lose the deal over something like that. So if you get that information up front, that's the way to go. Oh, here. We're going to take all of them. I ran out of paper clips. So there you go. And then we're going to go into the loan information. So you're going to ask them about their loan, and they're probably going to give you one of their monthly pay stubs or mortgage statements. But you really want to dig deep. You can't call the lender and say, hey, give me all the information. But you're like, hey, what is it? Are you on time? Are there any prepayment penalty? Like, what's going on? Do you have a forbearance? Just tell me anything that you have going on with your loan. So then the property profile, like I said, you're going to call the title company, get all of that. And then measurements. Your job is also to measure. Do not use previous listing measurements. Go in there and measure it yourself. Take down all your notes and everything, because it really does matter. They could be halfway through the deal and then realize the room's 9 by 9 and they needed it 11 by 11, and it kills the deal. So if you get that information up front, less likely to have problems. You're also going to try to get an extra set of keys, whether that be, turn this off, sorry. So you're going to get an extra set of keys, whether you hold on to them or they have them. Just make sure there's an extra set, because sometimes sellers will put their only set of keys in that lockbox. Somebody forgets to return it, and now nobody has access to that house, and you have to get a rekey and all that stuff. So try to avoid that. Possible permits. Sometimes they're going to need permits for a sunroom or a shade or something's going on. They built something back there. Also, if they have a shed, ask if they had a HOA approval. Most people don't even think about it. They're like, I'm going to put a shed back there. Well, a lot of HOAs, they say you can't have anything that peeks over the wall. So you just wanna make sure, because you sell that house and now all of a sudden the HOA is coming to the new buyers and saying, take it down. They're like, that's why I bought it, I needed that shed out there. So it causes problems, so we always wanna make sure that they've gotten everything approved through their HOA. And then your job is to then put it on the MLS, order a sign and a signpost, and then pictures, video, marketing, that is all your job as a listing agent. It's not just put it on the MLS and let it sit. So make sure that you're doing everything to follow up, to market that property. They've hired you to market and sell that property, so do all that you can. You're also gonna want to confirm if they qualify for FHA or VA loans, and that's mainly for like condos. Even townhomes, some townhomes, they look like townhomes, but then they're recorded as like condo. It's happened before. You're like, no, this is a townhome, and the lender's like, this is not what it says on paper. So some condos are not FHA approved, or even VA approved. So they just won't loan on it. So now you need to know that before you really go on the market, because you don't wanna advertise, we're taking FHA, when all of a sudden you get an offer, you're like, oh, sorry. You know, the lender's not accepting it. So wanna do that. You're also gonna wanna call to confirm there's no SIDS and LIDs. Or actually there's a website, and I gave it to you, I think, in the last class. But there's a specific website you can do, even if they don't think that they're in a master plan community like Summerlin or Cadence or whatever, still go to that website and check, because there are some little pockets around town that have, I'm like, there's a cluster of like, I don't know, 80 homes, and all of a sudden they have their own SID and LID. There's a new one, Vista Valley or Valley Vista or something like that up in North Las Vegas, and I found out they have one, and I was like, they're right outside Aliante, but I'm like, it's just one community. It's just super weird, because it's not big enough to make me think that it needs a master plan community, but it does. So you're gonna wanna check. And just go to the website, type in the address, and it'll tell you if there's a balance and if there's anything that's traveling with it. So then, at that point, you get offers, you're gonna review the offers, you're gonna present them to your seller, then you're gonna contact the lender before you make a decision. You ask the lender, you know, how solid are your clients? You know, she put, or the listing, or the buyer's agent put 18 days for appraisal and 21 days for loan. Is that good? Because we as realtors just get used to putting numbers in there, but you should really talk to your lender before you make that offer and say, hey, can we reduce this to make it look good to 15 days? Don't put 15 days if the lender can't do it in 15 days, because there's people like me that'll say, okay, you need to extend, that'll be $100 a day. Because not my fault, that's what we agreed upon, and now you want an extension. So to extend, it's gonna cost your buyers. So you wanna be very particular in how you write your offer, so get with your lender about that. Then we're gonna, let's see, contact letter. So then you're gonna do a seller net sheet. So I always do the net sheet before I say, okay, you like this offer, here's what you're gonna net. Are you okay with that? Okay, if not, then let's kind of fudge these and maybe not give so much in closing costs. And sellers have a bottom line too, what they wanna sell for. It's not just like, I like that number. So sometimes they have to, hey, I've gotta wipe out this other debt, I need this much. So you always wanna do the net sheet, and then if everybody agrees, they're like, okay, let's send them that counter or just accept it the way that it is. Once you do that, you're gonna obtain all signatures, and that's not just your sellers. You're gonna make sure the buyers have signed an initial every page and dated and timed everything. Because if not, that paperwork's just gonna keep going back and forth and back and forth. So just get it done right at the beginning. And I have no problem saying to the other agent, hey, I noticed they forgot an initial on page 3. Do you mind doing that and then sending it back? Because the minute you upload it in SkySlope, then it's okay. You have to fix it. Then your seller has to sign, and then that buyers have to sign. And it's just was one initial, and now they have to initial that they initialed it. It's just, it becomes a little convoluted, so you want to kind of handle that up front. And then change order. So once you go under contract, say I'm the listing agent, because this is what we're doing the listing side right now. We accept an offer, we send our open escrow email, and then we do a change order that says under contract or under contract no show. And you need to put it that you've accepted that and then upload that into SkySlope. If it falls out, now you need to change it from under contract to ER status again, because you're going back on the market. But everybody forgets that change order, so just make sure you do that.
Does that feed into the MLS as well?
It doesn't feed into there, but we need it for ours in case the, LVR, the division comes after us, like, you didn't change this, you didn't, well, we did change it, what date did you change it? Like, all the dates have to match, so whatever you change, your acceptance date, because once you go, that's how I should back up. So as the listing agent, Once you accept an offer, you have to go back into the MLS and change it to under contract, and it'll ask you the date that you accepted it. So that date has to match this under contract change order form, and then that way when you upload into SkySlope, Maria is gonna say, hey, this date doesn't match, you need to give me this, da, 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 da. So all of it matches on the back end, but it's what you type in there, and we all make mistakes, so sometimes you put the wrong date in the MLS, and now you have to correct that, and, you know, so just all your paperwork has to match. Then we have, okay, then there's a form, so we wanna open escrow, did we do that yet? No, okay, so there's gonna be a form in here where it says, it's on this page, this last page here. So the page that says, due diligence objections, there's 3 pages, just go up to the back page. So this is to keep everybody on track, so when you're brand new for your first 3 transactions, you're all gonna fill this out once you accept an offer, or they, you know, you go under contract. Either way, if you're the buyer's agent or the listing agent, Tim and I need you to fill this out, because that's how we keep track that you're keeping track, because you're new. We don't expect you to keep track of all these types of things. So that's what, Tim and I will do. So you're gonna put your name in there, you're gonna put the lender that you're using with their name and their contact information, you're gonna put your buyers or sellers' names, and then the address of the property. And then you're gonna fill this out from that accepted contract, okay? What was your under contract date when they accepted it? What was the earnest money due date? So usually 48 hours or whatever, so it's, so does everybody understand when, say I accept an offer today at 5 o'clock, when does, like, my due diligence, how many, you got, say you have 10 days due diligence, when does that start? Today? At 5? Tomorrow? No, it's actually 24 hours, so it's the next day. So if it goes under contract today at 5, you're gonna start counting day 1 the next day. So then that way, when you're writing this out,
At 5 or at the start of the day?
it just starts of the day,
Okay.
yeah, so, because a lot of people are like, well, it started so late, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Well, it's tomorrow anyways, but if it's 10 o'clock this morning, okay, day 1 is still tomorrow, okay? So start day 1, and then count 10 days out, and that's how you're gonna fill those in there, right? So then, the due diligence ends, so if you have 10 days, we wanna know the last day of the due diligence, not the day that it starts. So if it's today, what's the date, the 29th? Gotta get my calendar out here. So say we went under contract today, day 1 is the 30th, so I have 10 days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My due diligence will end Saturday, December 9th, and I would put December 9th right there, 12/9. So then that way Tim and I know, because we're gonna be, you never wanna wait till the last day on your due diligence. You really kinda wanna have an answer on the day before, because that way you have to say, hey, if we need to extend, you have to write an addendum to extend, and you have to send it to the other agent and hope they sign it in time before it expires at midnight on your last day of due diligence. So you wanna give yourself enough leeway there. Same with your HOA package. Once the HOA package is delivered, the buyer has 5 days to review it. I always say, I need to hear from you on day 4. Are you gonna stay with it, is it something we need to know? Because at day 5, you tell me you don't, now we've got a dispute, because, oh, it already ended, it didn't, you know. I give myself an extra day leeway. So if I ask for 10-day due diligence, at day 9, I'm having an answer. Because I don't wanna mess with it, I don't wanna wait till the last minute. My job as a buyer or seller's agent is to make sure my timeframes are on point. So, Emma, were those your keys? Did you leave your keys out front over here? Oh, no, maybe not.
That's my
Somebody had
keys.
left keys over here.
Oh,
so
no, that's just my keys.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then you'll have your appraisal contingency time, when it ends. So if you're asking for 18-day appraisal contingency, you're gonna tell us what that day 18 is. Your loan contingency, 21 days or whatever, tell us what 21 days is, and then your closing date. And then that way we know when it's supposed to close, and we're gonna be following up that week prior, like what's going on. I mean, unless we don't have contact, sometimes they go really smooth, not always, but then when they do and we don't hear from you, we're like, okay, we're going through these forms daily. Like, okay, does anybody coming up on anything right now? What do we need to do? Closing date is in 5 days. Okay, let me reach out, say what's going on, where are we at? So Tim and I really, really need this form filled out right when you get an offer accepted, on either side, right? All right, and then we're going to,
Wendy,
Yes.
so the first 3 deals, where you guys are involved, that's whether it's a buyer or a seller?
yeah,
It's just a deal.
regardless, it's a transaction. Not so much a rental, because rentals are,
Yeah.
you're just like showing them the home and they're like, here's W-9, okay, cool, you know, like, we don't, there's not much paperwork, there's not even a duties owed to that. So it's the transaction when you're purchasing or selling it, and that way we can follow through. After year 3, we don't necessarily need this, because we're not watching your transaction at that point, but we're here for any questions that you have. We're just, at this point, hopefully trained you well enough to watch your own transaction timeframes. But if you have questions, like, hey, is this the date or that the date, you know, just let us know. Okay, so then we open escrow. Whose job is it to open escrow? Listing side, buyer side?
Listing.
So there's a great debate. I don't care what side I'm doing, I still act like I'm the only one opening escrow, because I know I'm gonna send title, all the information. Because some people are like, please open escrow, here's the address. I CC the other agent. Okay, great, there's nothing. So, if you look at this packet, oh, actually it says right here, email to escrow officer. Some people say, no, it's the listing agent. Well, here's the problem. The listing agent doesn't have all the buyer's agent's information or the lender's information, but then the buyer's agent doesn't have, if you know, they might not have title's information if you use their title company. Like, so I'm just like, hey, just so you know, I'm opening escrow, and I CC everybody, and if they do it on the other side, they do it too. I don't care. But I just wanna make sure everybody's got the information. If you guys go above and beyond and do that yourselves, you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's just gonna get done. Right.
Do you ever run into conflict though, like if you're the listing agent and then the buyer's agent is like, no, I wanted to use this title company?
Well, that's all done in the negotiation part of the contract.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Got it.
all done there. Mhm.
Nice.
So then, yeah, so you'll have all that information. Mhm.
The buyers has choice, first choice.
Technically, yes, it's a buyer's choice, but then if as a listing agent, I'm been doing this 19 years, so I know there's certain title companies that or even just escrow officers, might not be the title company. I might just say, hey, well, yeah, but you're gonna use this escrow officer, you know, like, and then what's the dispute? I'm still using your title company, I just prefer to use this escrow officer. So if you're the listing agent, or if I'm the listing agent and the buyer sends me an offer and I've got a whole bunch of stuff I wanna counter and I'm like, oh my gosh, their title company, I already know, or we already have something started, there's a trust started at this title company, it's an LLC, like there's so much already done here, we might counter that out, and there's nothing wrong with it. So as on the mentee program for your first 3, you're always gonna wanna use Rock Title, because we are hand in hand with Rock, so we can call them after hours, they're there for us, and they're monitoring our transactions, making sure we don't have any flubs, just like we're monitoring them as well.
But if you're the listing agency and they pick a different title company, do you have a choice?
You do, that's where I was like, okay, so I'm the listing agent, and you're the buyer's agent, and you send over an offer with, I don't know, XYZ title company.
Legally, buyers has first choice.
They do,
Yeah.
yes, and that's why we
Yeah.
let you do it, but then like, that's not the only, like, as a listing agent, I can't just send you a counter to change your title company. That's opening up for, cause of problems here. So we don't wanna do that, but if I have other things I'm countering and I'm like, if I had a problem, there's a couple of title companies and escrow officers that I was like, that's just gonna be a debacle. Like, I know, like, it's just, I can't, like, I just cannot do that, let me try to counter that one out. But I have to have other counters as well, like the due diligence or the timeframes or whatever. Oh, and also title to be with Rock Title, Jennifer Croft. You know, I'll put that in there.
You just pick your battles.
Yes,
Something
you
not
do.
worth fighting over.
There are some that you just are like, hey, I'm just gonna let it be, that's a small.
And I'm assuming that would be like a conversation where you call the other realtor and be like, hey, you know, I don't know about you with your experience, but I've had some issues.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put this in, just so that, again, that's not going to be the one issue that
Yes.
comes back.
It is, open communication is the best, and when I do a listing, in my agent-to-agent remarks, I always put, in bold, please call listing agent before you submit an offer. And I've already had that. 8 times out of 10, they won't call. But I like to have that, like, because, like, right now, I have one that we can't accept FHA. And we did at the beginning, and then the FHA appraisal came in low.
No, I was gonna say it wasn't FHA approved.
Well, no, it was. It came in low, and that was not the price that she was willing to take. So I said that fell out. Let's go back on the market. But we'll take out FHA because the FHA appraisal will travel with that property for 6 months. So if I get another FHA buyer, they don't have to get an appraisal because that one's already done, and that's the price they're using. So at that point, we put it back on the market for cash and conventional. That's it. I got 4 offers in the first week FHA. Nobody's called me, and it clearly states down here, cash conventional, and it states not accepting FHA. And they keep sending them. And I was like, I have to call each one, we are not accepting it. One says, oh my God, is it against the law to take an FHA? No, it's not against the law. Like, if you had just called me, I could have told you, we have a low appraisal, we're not taking it, but they don't, so just really
Right.
look at those remarks.
And they've wasted their own time because they're showing a home
They showed the home.
that they're trying to do FHA.
And then I have to now present that to my seller, get my seller to reject the whole thing and then bundle it back up. It's just so much work for everybody, just call. So just read the remarks and do it, because now those buyers are excited because they want the house, and now you just let them down, you know? So it does matter. So I always say, even if it doesn't say call, hi, I'm just checking in, I'm getting ready to submit an offer. Do you guys have any current offers on the property? Is there anything that is enticing to your seller? Do they want a quick close? Do they want a rent back? Do they, like, what can I do to make my offer stand out? That's all you have to say. And if they say, what's your title company? I use Rock Title, I'm with Realty One, well, we already got it opened over here, would you mind, because the trust and all, they've already gone through the docs. Trusts are a little different because they're very entailed, and so somebody has to go through those ahead of time, and sometimes as soon as you open escrow, they want all the trust docs, because it can take weeks to go through all that stuff and make sure the right person's signing and everything. So with that, you're gonna wanna, if you've got a trust that's open, just go with them and say, hey, each agent, buyer's agent, we have a trust, which you'd see, because that's what's on the tax record, it's a trust. Hey, and if I'm a buyer's agent, I call up and say, hey, I know I see that it's under a trust, do you have a preferred title company? I was going to use Rock Title, is that okay? I know my escrow officer really well. You try to really use Rock Title through that as a buyer's agent, but there are some times that they're like, hey, it has to be, we have an investor, they're doing a 1031, 4 properties involved, and like, okay, that's convoluted, like maybe we just stay with your title company, they have them close. But you don't want it to kill, like Heather said, you don't want it to kill the deal, but it's always best to try to. And then Rock Title does give discounts if, buyer and seller agree, and then they'll give you like 20% discount and all that stuff. So there are benefits to use them. So just keep that in mind. But, so with this email opening, the opening escrow email, you're gonna include your client's names and email addresses. I don't give any more than that, because it's gonna go to the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the lender, title, so I don't necessarily want the agent on the other side have all my client's information, but the title company needs something. So rather than the phone number, they'll get an email, and then if the other agent is emailing my clients, I've got it in writing. So to me, it seems a little bit morbid, but the escrow officers that I choose to use, Jennifer Croft and Kathleen LaMarche, they're both at the Northwest office. I put their emails and then their phone numbers in there. We do have 3 Rock offices. So again, if you're selling a house in Green Valley, you might want to use one of those escrow officers over there, because your clients are going to be back and forth, or they live over there. No sense in having them drive all the way over to Anna 95, but we've got 3 Rock offices, but these are the ones over here at Northwest. So Northwest and Summerlin tends to just gravitate towards the Northwest, right? But then you'll send an email to include both the listing agent, the buyer's agent, title, the lender, and any transaction coordinators. So I myself never had a transaction coordinator, but you guys as new mentees, you have Maria, and so all of your documents are gonna get sent to Maria. So when you're sending over an offer, to open escrow, not the offer, but when you're opening escrow, CC Maria on that, because all the documents are gonna go to her, and she can start your sky slope there. For the first 3 transactions, you're required to use the TC, so she can kind of help you through that sky slope, right? So just CC her on that. And then also Tim and myself, because we're gonna review it. We've been reviewing it before you submit the offer and all that, but then that way we know we've opened escrow and things are rolling. You can copy and paste this information below. And for the next 3 pages is what you're gonna wanna fill out, but please change it to make it pertinent to your email. We have some agents that just copy and paste and send, and because it's got it all filled out, but it's not pertinent to them. But I just put, hello Jennifer, congratulations everyone. Please open escrow for my clients, and put your clients' names there. John and Jane Doe. Yeah, John and Jane Doe. I represent the buyers or the sellers, I don't know which one, whatever, in this transaction. Attached, you'll find the RPA and counters, whatever you did, however many you did. I'm including everyone's contact information. I'm at the Realty One Group Summerlin office. We look forward to working with all of you. If you can please send me an estimated closing statement as soon as you have all the appropriate figures, that would be very helpful to my clients. That way we can kind of review it as we go, and it's gonna change, and if you get a last one right at the very end, but at least we know sometimes the seller agrees to pay some closing costs, but it wasn't put on there, we all forgot to send the addendum to title, and we're like, oh, hey, it's missing.
And also, is that information what's needed to put together the, net statement,
The what?
the, net sheet?
What is what?
The information where you said, please send an estimated closing.
Oh,
statement.
that's just kind of like, what the title does is they take everything from your offer, and then they put it in a settlement statement, like sales price to be this, down payment this, seller contribute closing cost this, and then it totals down to what the total is, and then what the buyers have to bring in, and the earnest money,
Right.
and then they'll prorate, utilities, so it does, normally they don't have one right off the bat. It takes a week or so of time to get that, and then you'll get a revised one at the very end, and then when you go in to sign, because you all should go to your signings and sit with your clients, you'll go in there and they'll give you the settlement statement, that's the first thing they do, they hand one to the buyers, and then one to you, or one to the sellers and one to you, and you review it and make sure all the fees are on the right side. Because sometimes it's like, the seller agreed to pay the home warranty, but now the home warranty is sitting there, $600 on the buyer's side. You have to, your job, and really, that's the only thing in the signing that we do, like, we look at that first statement, and the settlement statement, like, hey, that needs to be changed, whatever, there's a pad here, but, it says mobile notary, but I'm sitting in your office, are you gonna remove that $200 for my clients, you just kinda go through that and like, okay, yeah, everything looks good, that's it, and then you're just sitting there for support at that point. So all the information they bundle together, cause title's job is to take stuff from the listing side and stuff from the buyer side, meld it all together, and then that's how they make those settlement statements. So it's gonna come off of all of our contracts, counters, and addendums. And then they just meld it together in
Right.
that settlement statement. Does
So,
that answer your question?
yeah, well, there was a line item that said, like, you provide them with a net sheet, right, if you're a
Oh,
listing
yeah.
agent.
So
Do you
we-
use that information
No.
as part of that?
No, so the net sheet is basically, you're gonna go to Rock Title or any of the apps that you have on your phone, they do net sheets, and then you're just gonna type in their sales price, closing date, commission, any extra miscellaneous fees, and then it totals it down and says, hey, this is an estimated
Okay,
net.
got it.
Because we don't know these figures, and
Right.
most title companies, they all have different figures, but they're $60 to $100 different, they're not extremely far off. But we don't know what fees they charge, we don't know what fees to sell, but most net sheets that you do provide for your buyer or seller, it's gonna have a general idea of what the sellers, or the title fees are, and the buyer's fees, and all that kind of stuff, it just totals that in there, but you're gonna put the general stuff in there.
Got it, okay.
And then, it says, okay, so you send me that, and then it says, please CC Tim Kalikiernan, Wendy Schaller, and Maria Ochus in the emails. Thank you, and I look forward to a successful closing. And then you put in there, Maria, will you be the TC on this file, and I'll reach out to get you all the required documents. So if there's anything else that's needed, you just kind of send it all to Maria. But then that way you're talking to Jennifer, you're talking to Maria, whatever. But then I put in here, please remove this sentence when you're copying and pasting and adjust the information, okay? So when you go to the next page, this is where you kind of summarize what's going on. So purchase price to be $350, EMD to be $5,000, wire to title within 48 hours. Escrow to be opened with Jennifer Croft at Rock Title. Estimated close of escrow, 12/8. Due diligence is 10 days, appraisal, contingency 18 days. And the reason why you're spelling all this out is so title knows, I know, Tim knows, Maria knows, but the other agent knows as well. And it's like, oh, our figures, we've got to get our figures all the same, on the same page. Yep, and then seller to contribute $5,000 towards the buyer's closing costs. Seller will pay the home warranty at the $600. There is a transaction fee for us for $700 to Realty One Group for this transaction. And then it says 2.5% commission to Realty One, whatever the commission is. But it says if you were the listing agent, you can put both commissions on there. But as a buyer's agent, you're not gonna know what the listing agent negotiated for them, their side. But the listing agent will know both sides, because they're,
In light of transparency for the ongoing NAR lawsuit, is it gonna be like a copy of the purchase, the buyer's agreement to pay a commission to the agent is gonna come here, right?
So what happened, and what I've always done is, I have always, in 19 years, I've always had my buyers fill out a buyer's broker agreement.
Yeah.
So in that page, on that page, it asks what the commission is that I get. And if I put 2%, 2.5%, 3%, I just explain to my clients, I get X amount of money, and whatever the seller doesn't compensate will be charged to you, okay? Great. So what I do is if it's less than, like say I was taking a 3% commission for this transaction, but the seller was only paying 2%. At that point, when I send this document over, all of these documents, I would send my buyer broker agreement. So the title company knows that they will be charging the buyer the other, so it needs to all spell out.
And the lender.
And the lender, yes, and the lender needs it as well too, because they gotta factor that in there. Yeah. So you just wanna keep everybody in the loop about any kind of fees, because the buyer's coming out of pocket and extra $1,000 could throw them over.
Right.
So you need to make sure everybody's on the same page, yeah.
And in a situation like that where even though in the beginning you have your buyers sign something that says, oh yeah, I'll pay the difference.
Mhm.
Do you then revisit that as you're putting in an offer like, hey, just FYI? Because I could imagine someone signing it and thinking, yeah, sure, that's not a problem, but then when it comes down to reality of like, hey, I now have to come up with $10,000 as well,
Yeah.
then that could be an issue.
Yep,
Have you ever seen
absolutely.
that?
Yep, absolutely. I had a client years ago that, he did not wanna see, he says the seller should pay that commission. And he's a long-term client of mine, but he's an investor, so in his mind, he's not paying it. He's not paying it. So I was back in the day, we had a little button that would let us, when we set up their MLS search, not to show them any homes below this. So if it was, I said my commission is 3%, he says, then show me anything that pays 3%. Like I'm not looking at anything below that, I'm not coming out of pocket. So I did tell him, we went for like a month and a half, and I said, okay, you're not seeing anything. I can reduce that commission to 2.5%, let's start there, just know that other 0.5%. He's like, no. We went another month, and I said, again, I can't change anything, this is what's out there. If you want, I can reduce that commission, it'll just be yours. We changed it, within 2 days we were under contract. Because that was just what was happening. He was looking for an investment property, so it was fixer-upper, all that, they just weren't paying on that. So it cost him just that little bit, but he ended up getting the house. So I do, and I'll say I have him sign the buyer broker agreement at the very beginning, and then something might happen during the transaction. We find a house, everything's great, and then all of a sudden there's an extra cost somewhere. And I'll say, okay guys, you know what? I know that this came up and I don't want you to lose the house over that, so I'll just go ahead and reduce that commission to whatever the seller's call, and then so we have to write another addendum and send it to title and the lender that says we're no longer charging that. You just gotta keep everybody in the loop. I don't do that too often, but you don't want them to lose a house over your $1,500, that's their house, so you just kinda make it work the way that it is. Also, I kinda wanted to talk to everybody about, cause we've had this come up a couple of times, so you guys are all in the mentee program, so we don't charge anything up front. We give you front load all the training, right? And so for compensation, Realty One, that's where the 70-30 split comes about. So then we have some agents that, they have clients that are like, no, I want you to give me half of your commission. The problem with that is that Realty One is still gonna get paid on at least 2.5%. So if you discount your side of that commission, you're gonna be coming out of pocket to pay that difference. One person was like, they only want to make sure I only get 1% as an agent. And I said, okay, but now you're in the negative because you have to pay that difference. Because Realty One does do a ton of training and all this extra back office stuff. That's the only compensation they get, and they wait for it for when you guys have a closing. So if you guys have to adjust commissions, you have to talk to me, Tim, and Maria first, so we can kind of work through that and see how it's gonna be, because we don't want you guys to be in the negative, and I know it's 3 transactions, and this one agent was just like, I don't care, I just gotta get through my 3 transactions, but I said, you worked so hard to get through these transactions for a client that you've never dealt with before. They came from out of state and they said, no, you shouldn't make any more than this, and she explained to them she's on the split, they said, not our problem, and it was just really, she did it, she ended up doing the transaction, but it was just so disheartening because she was working so hard on it, and it's like, so just talk to us if something like that comes about. We can't just, not get paid, and you guys can't not get paid. You've got a license on the line, so just talk to us about all of that. But then also, okay, so we finished that. Then you're gonna wanna list out everybody's contact information. The sellers' names, John and Jane Doe, with their email. Again, don't put phone numbers for the buyers or sellers. Then I put the listing agent, which would be myself, with my contact information, email, phone number. Then I put the buyers' names and email, and then the buyers and the agents' names and email, and then on the last page, it is the lender's information. they're all CC'd on this email, but then that way, if the listing agent, cause if I represent the buyer, I give the listing agent permission to talk to my lender. If they're like, hey, where are we at in the process or whatever, so, that, yes, it's on the pre-approval. Cause again, you're gonna wanna, as a listing agent, you're gonna submit an offer to me and I'm gonna call that the lender. But even so, I wanna make sure that the title company has lender information. Everybody can contact whoever they need to contact. It will be just a much smoother transaction. So that's why with all this information, I don't know if it's the buyer's responsibility or the seller's responsibility to send out this email. It's a lot of information that not either side has all of it, so that's why I was just like, hey, open it. And then what's gonna happen right after you send this out, Jennifer's gonna, at least what she's always done for me, is like, thank you, I will open escrow shortly and get you an escrow number, and then she starts sending out emails separately. Hey Wendy, can I have the seller's information, their contact, blah, 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 blah. Hey, Mr. Buyer's agent, can I have the buyer's information, their phone number, all that stuff. And then she starts emailing the buyer and the seller, so it's like, it trickles down, but you gave her the starting point right there, so she can start contacting people. So,
You have a ready-made form of this?
that's what this is, you can just copy and paste, but if you need it,
Right,
we
same
can email
online.
it, yep, we can email it to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I just needed to print it out for the class, but yes. Yeah, I changed it up a little bit today, but yeah, so it's in a Word document, I
Yeah.
might just send it out to all of my implementees, it'd be great. This one, and then,
Now, what we saving?
what was that?
Now, what we saving?
Yeah, we're saving it, just copy and paste. Yeah, so there's this one, and then there is, you'll need this one, but you don't have to copy paste that one, but then all of this information. So on this one, the due diligence objection language, when you're filling out a contract, I'm sure you guys have gotten this one already, but it kind of gives you an idea of like earnest money deposit, 48 to 72 hours, and due diligence, 10 days. I do change that up sometimes if I have out-of-state clients, and I know they wanna come in to do inspections and stuff. 10 days is kind of hard because if I go under contract, I call my home inspector right away. And I try to get him out there within 24 to 48 hours. If I have an out-of-state client, they might not be able to get there for 3 or 4 days, so I say, hey, I need 14-day due diligence, and I'll tell the listing agent, this is why. They're from out of state and they're coming in, so we're not even gonna start our inspections until this day. Just open lines of communication, and I think everybody on both sides will understand that. But then there's also page 2, line 41 of your RPA. You're gonna wanna put in there, all items per this MLS number, and write the MLS number down there, to include the LG refrigerator, Samsung washer dryer, Ring doorbell, like include it all in there. And then your title and escrow, blah, blah, blah. And then page 9. Upon buyer providing seller with request for repairs, buyer's due diligence period shall be extended by the same number of calendar days that it takes the seller to respond in writing to the buyer's request. And it's brilliant, which for years I had never even seen this, but it's brilliant because what would happen is you get all this done, you did all your inspections, and then you send a repair request over, and you only have a 10-day due diligence period, and day 10, the sellers never answer you. So your job as a buyer's agent is either cancel the deal, or tell your buyer, hey, just buy it, and they're not fixing anything. Like, you had no options. So what this does is say, hey, I'm gonna give you my repair request on day 8, and however long it takes for you to respond, that's how many more days I'm gonna add back on to that, my due diligence period. So by this one statement, you're extending your due diligence period, however long they take to get back to you. So then that way you don't have to cancel.
Question.
Yes.
Instead of due diligence, how would you feel if you're a listing agent and just put all contingencies are extended? And the reason I asked that, like, I know Carrie ran into this.
Yeah.
I had a client that
Mhm.
pulled out before because of the home inspection, so this time she's like, I don't want to order the appraisal
Yeah.
until we know they're gonna fix everything that I want
That's
to
a
fix.
good idea, because that's the problem, is you've got your inspections that are $400, and then at the same time, the lender's like, okay, gotta order your appraisal $600, and you're like, okay, that was $1,000
Yeah, but they're
out of
like,
pocket.
don't order it yet.
Yeah.
So you're like,
Yeah.
don't order it, but we need to.
You know what we could start doing is maybe writing, and I'll have to talk to Tim, but writing in additional terms, appraisal to be ordered, once, hey, Damon, since you're standing here, hi, there for you.
I'm just learning.
Yeah, come here, well, we're gonna learn from you?
Here from over here.
Sorry, I left the door open, but, so Heather had a good question, like, so on this, on page 9, we put upon buyer providing seller with request for repairs, buyer due diligence to be extended.
By the
however
same,
many-
okay,
Yep.
by the same number of calendar days, yep.
Heather had a good question, why, would it be okay if we put all contingencies to be extended? Because if we push the repairs, and then we decide we don't wanna buy the house, the lenders already have ordered and paid for the appraisal?
No, the reason for that clause is for a buyer not to have to submit the request for repairs, and then the days start ticking, and then you get to day 10,
Yeah.
and the seller still hasn't responded, and now the buyer is forced to make a decision. Buyer, do you want the home, or do you wanna move forward at risk without the seller doing repairs, because we're not getting a response back, so it's really to push the seller to give a response back, so the buyer's just not
Yeah,
automatically
and
extended.
I love it for that reason,
Uh-huh.
but the other thought was sometimes if maybe they don't wanna move forward on the house until they know if they're gonna fix, the issues on the home inspection, so they don't wanna waste their money on an appraisal.
So that's a separate topic.
Separate topic, yes.
Correct, so you can extend and love it, because that's what a lot of investors will do, by the way, they'll actually either pause, and if you go into the appraisal contingency, not to, you know, take up your time here, our appraisal contingency does not, address not receiving the appraisal by the time the appraisal contingency days are up. So if the buyer were to pause that, to wait for the request for repairs, all that stuff, and they exceeded those appraisal contingency days and didn't receive the appraisal, they're now possibly going to either lose their earnest money
Correct.
or have to request an extension of that from the seller, and the seller can say, no, we're not extending, and the buyer can't cancel because they'd be in default. So you would have to just make sure you put in enough time in that appraisal time frame, or possibly create an additional clause for that the appraisal contingency to be extended. But you're now weakening the buyer's position quite a bit. 'Cause
Right.
Now the
So
seller can
as a
say.
listing agent. you would
Yeah,
like
as a
that.
listing agent, you say, no, two separate topics, let's address one at a time, right? And bottom line is put that in there and we'll get you a response back on the request for repairs, but, you know, we're not muddying the waters with the appraisal contingency, loan contingency and so on. So the more you attach, just the muddier it's gonna get.
Yeah, so you just kinda wanna lengthen the appraisal, thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, and lengthen the appraisal contingency timeframe, or, I see what you're saying, that's like, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Cause we all learn from each other, okay, it doesn't matter how many, you know, and Heather's been doing loans for so long, like, she sees a different side of it. So, maybe
Because
in.
appraisals are not cheap anymore,
No,
and
they're
it's
not.
a lot of money,
Mhm.
and sometimes they're so angry when the home inspection comes back, they're thinking it's gonna be perfect, and
And
they're
it's
like, I
not.
wanna cancel, don't order the appraisal, like, I kinda have to,
Yeah.
but
You-
ultimately it's your decision.
You offer a credit, this is maybe when you offer a credit, so you can move forward.
Well, you don't really wanna offer credit because the seller isn't paying for it. Yeah, so what, maybe in additional terms at the end, so you fill out the RPA the same way, maybe, we'll have to talk to Tim about it, but maybe in additional terms, put, if due diligence period is extended due to repair requests or time frame or something, appraisal contingency to be extended the same amount of days, or not to be ordered, appraisal not to be ordered until, yeah, maybe something like that. Appraisal not to be ordered until, everybody has agreed upon repair request, maybe something like that. Because in that way, it speeds up the,
Or you just write, like, I like to see them like at 21 days or so,
Mhm.
just cause you don't have to worry about it, and then if they do need to wait for whatever reason,
The due diligence.
the due diligence on the appraisal.
the appraisal contingency.
Oh.
So I'll
Appraisal
do,
contingency.
yeah, I usually do 10 days contingency, for due diligence. And then I'll do 18 for your, 18 or 20 for the appraisal, and then like 25 for your loan. But then sometimes the seller's like, no, and then they wanna close in 30 days, and I'm like, okay, well, I've been under contingencies for 25 days. So now you've just tied up the property for 25 days, and if they back out, the seller can't even recoup the earnest money. So that's why, as a listing agent, it depends, you have to wear a different hat, whoever you represent, right? So as a listing agent, I want those contingencies very short. But as a buyer's agent, you're like, I want them very long, because I have to make sure I can do everything. And then like Carrie had, she did an inspection report, and oh my gosh, she had to have a roof inspector out there, an electrical inspector, a window guy, like so she had to, you know, like there were so many people she had to do in 10 days, and then she had to wait for them to get the invoices and estimates back, and she did have to extend, but, you know, it was dicey there, we weren't sure that it was gonna go through for a little bit. because there's so many things, and then the sellers, they never lived in the property, they're like, I'm not fixing anything, we're like, okay, but it's a 20-year-old home, and the windows are failing. And they're like, just these two. Well, no, all of them are failing, and then, so it was just a big dispute. So you just never know, and it took her twice as long in that due diligence period. So the buyer was like, I don't wanna order this appraisal. And that's
how
what
my,
happened.
I just had one like that. I thought for sure she was canceling it. She moved forward, but
Mhm.
it
You don't
was,
know.
she
Yeah.
did not want me to.
Because
Last
it's expensive.
Wednesday, before Thanksgiving, she's like, don't order the appraisal. I'm like,
I
I
have
need to.
Yeah,
We're
because
going back
then
and
it-
forth, and then she allowed me to, but.
Because it can
The
help.
listing agent's like, did you order the appraisal yet? And I'm like, and I told her, I'm like, and I didn't wanna say she might cancel, cause that's none of my business,
Yeah.
but, you know, it was
Mhm.
kinda dicey.
And now what was I gonna say? I don't remember, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, it does get a little, and that could be $1,000, $1,200 out of pocket, and then it cancels, and then you're like, the buyer's like, that was like my down payment, part of my down payment, I can't even afford a down payment now. So they could lose everything because of all of these things that they've done, and the lender can't go forward without the appraisal, so it's like, it has to be on the time frame. So it is, it's really dicey there with the time frames, and that's why that sheet of paper is super important for Tim and I, because we're like, okay, did this get done, that get done, okay, so if we didn't get done, let's try to extend it and send an addendum out there. So we all kinda need to be in cahoots, you never wanna wait till the last day, because if the other party doesn't sign it, it's like, so, well, you know, so we wanna stay on top of all that. A good question, really good question. And then, okay, there's also a little line in here, I see, it says, there's two of them, property be left in broom swept condition. It's always nice to put it in there, because some sellers will think, oh, I'm just gonna put all my trash in the garage and they can just pull it out the next trash day. It's not your job. Or they leave all their trash and you're like, now the buyer has to hire a dumpster company to come in there, because there's couches and just so much furniture that it's not their responsibility to do. But then also seller to order the CC&Rs within 24 hours of acceptance. So that's a good one to put in there. Sometimes it's like, hey, let me just, you know, or you get the weekend and then, you know, so I always send an email to my, title escrow officer. You know, as soon as we open escrow, if I'm the listing agent, please send my buyer, or please send my seller the links to order his HOA docs. Then I've sent that out, you still have to follow up and make sure, because some of them are like, oh, I sent it, I didn't get it, and then it's like 2 days later, like, oh my gosh, we didn't order it, because that's a specific time frame too, because they're under contingencies, the buyer is, until they get those docs. They get those docs and then they have 5 days to review them. So they can cancel if they don't like what's going on, they're just gonna use that as an excuse to cancel. I found something in the HOA docs I didn't like. And then they cancel, and then you have to give them back their earnest money. So the best thing to do as a listing agent is to order those HOA docs right away. They'll get delivered up to 14 days. I don't know why it takes so long.
You mentioned the title company orders it, or do you order it?
No, title company will send a link to the
The link, you don't send,
sellers.
you don't send the link to your,
Mm-mm.
okay.
No, and then so they'll send it there, and then the sellers will click on that link and then pay. And then it sends out to, because it'll ask who they want it sent to, and you always wanna try to get it sent to you, because then you know when it's received, and then you could pass it on to that listing agent, or the buyer's agent, because the time starts clicking, you know, when it's sent out, so. Okay, so then with there, on the listing side, open escrow, order your HOA docs, I put within 48 hours, 24 is best, but, you know, sometimes we get all tied up. Also, make sure you give the buyer's agent the SRPD and all disclosures. Agents, it's so hard when you're representing a buyer, you're like, can I get the SRPD? I want that SRPD before I have my home inspector over there, so he knows what to look for if there's something that is, you know, off the charts. So, always try to get those out within 24 hours. Then once you get those HOA docs back, send the buyer's agent the HOA docs and the certificate of resale. When you're the listing agent, you want to send that piece of paper. It's a certificate of resale that says, here's the HOA docs, here's the name of the HOA, and this is the date I sent it to you. And that way it's already sent in there, and then the buyer's agent will write a receipt. And then you know that you've done your job, and that's when day one starts, so the time clock starts. Review the home inspection. Home inspection repair request, you're gonna write it up, if, most of them have something. Then you're gonna do an addendum, once you all agree upon that, then you write an addendum. If the seller is giving giving money instead of doing any repairs, do not put seller to contribute $5,000 in lieu of repairs. You don't want it to say repairs, because the lender's gonna see that, and they're gonna go, what kind of repairs? And you might call the loan, and that would be done. So you just say it's a very simple addendum. Seller to contribute $5,000 towards buyer's closing costs. Doesn't need to know why, Nobody in that transaction needs to know why, just, they're giving us $5,000, that's it. And don't get too wordy on your addendums, people do it all the time, or even the counter offers, like, well, because of this, we're gonna do, no. It's just plain and simple, one sentence, and I do bullet points, dot, 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 I don't need a whole book. This is, I'm asking for this, this, and this, that is it. So be very, less is more sometimes. Then as the seller, if you are doing repairs, you're gonna schedule the repairs as the listing agent. Sometimes it's easier for you to schedule it. Sometimes these plumbers and AC guys, they don't let you do it. Sometimes the seller has to do it, and sometimes there's a fee to do it. They'll say, we're gonna charge you a $150 fee, and to give you an estimate, and if you use us, we'll take it off there. But if not, we're gonna give you an estimate. So the seller might have to do that, but you have to work with the seller to get that done. You need to as a listing agent, let the appraiser in. They'll call you and say, even if it's vacant, just wanna make sure that I can come by at this time, and you just, yes, you can go by. Then you're gonna negotiate the appraisal if it comes in below. If it comes in at value, you as a listing agent are never gonna know what that value is unless it comes in low. So if I have my house listed at 400, the buyers pay for that appraiser, they come in there and do it, the buyer's agent, like a week or so later, will call back and say, hey, it came in at value, we're good. You just move on, because that means it came in at value or above, and the buyers are walking in with equity. If you tell the sellers have a chance to back out and put it back on the market for more money. So you don't wanna do that to your buyers, so just say it came in at value. And some sellers are like, what did it come in at? At value. Well, I just wanna know it at value, because the lender can't tell them either, so it just came in at value. But if it came in below, that's when you have that call as a buyer's agent. Hey, we got the appraisal, it came in $10,000 below the agreed upon price. Is your seller willing to reduce that price? And if they do, then you have to write up a whole nother addendum, and sales price now to be, da, da, da. So, that's where it says negotiate the appraisal if it comes in low, addendums that if, once everybody agrees upon pricing, and then you're gonna get that settlement statement, because this is when you're right towards the end. Title will send you that settlement statement to review those final numbers again. Then you're gonna schedule a signing. Once the loan docs the title company has received the loan docs, they're gonna call you and say, hey, we're ready for your buyers to come in, or sellers to come in and sign. Actually, sellers can sign right at the beginning. I forgot I'm still on the listing side. So once the seller's pretty much halfway through, they're like, hey, there's not much you can do if you wanna come in and sign. I still wait till the very end to have my sellers sign, because if it does cancel throughout the, like now it's a wasted trip for my sellers to stop what they're doing to go in and sign. So I usually sign 3 to 5 days prior to close of escrow for my sellers. Buyers, it's different, it's like the last minute. But then you attend the signings with them. Make sure they have proof of ID. Sometimes sellers show up. I always say too, and it can be a photo ID like a driver's license or passport, credit card, Costco card, whatever, that just who they look like. And then make sure, after you do the signing, all keys and remotes are at the house. Front door keys, back door keys, screens, gate keys, mailbox keys, pool keys, like whatever kind of keys are at the house. Remotes are tricky because sometimes people only have one, and every time they're gonna have two, but these are all the remotes I have. You can write in your contract, seller to give buyer 2 remotes, whatever you wanna do, but if they don't have it, they're gonna counter you just over a stupid remote. They can get a universal remote, but you wanna give them the buyers everything, because it's gonna be their house. So you wanna make sure that all those keys and remotes are at the house. You're gonna tell your seller to log out of all cameras, thermostats, all of that kind of stuff, because you don't want them changing thermostats or checking the ring camera while these people are living in their house. And then you're gonna instruct your seller to shut off all their utilities. I say 3 days after close of escrow, because you've gotta give the buyers enough time to move in. And if they call up and say, hey, we're set to close on Monday, let's have it shut off on Wednesday. They'll give them the date, whatever. And then when the buyers call up to turn them on, they're like, hey, we're shutting this off Wednesday. The buyer's like, okay, then they can do it behind the scenes, they don't have to go out there. Gas companies, sometimes they have to go out. But if you shut it off early, the buyers will now have reconnect fees. And that's not fair to them, And again, like if it's a Friday, you're closing at 5 o'clock on Friday, nobody's gonna come do their utilities, unless it was already pre-scheduled. So now they're not gonna have utilities all weekend long, and they're trying to move in, or clean, or paint. Just give them 3 days. Be nice about it, and you should tell the seller as well, if you represent the buyer, please do not turn off the utilities until after we close, because I can't do any inspections, re-inspections, my walkthrough. Some sellers are like, oh, you did your first inspection, everything's off, and you're like, I can't test anything. So then you have to wait for them to turn it back on, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but. Then notify everybody once it records. When it records, title will say, congratulations everybody, we recorded, it's been so great, working with you all, and I'll send your packages out. So then you immediately call your seller, buyer, whatever, and you just say, congratulations, I'm so happy for you guys, and so, if it's your buyer, you're gonna wanna go give them the key. But if it's your seller, just say, congratulations, thank you for letting me be part of this transaction. And then you're gonna pick up your lockbox. I usually do it 24 hours after, because they might not get there that same day. But you don't wanna leave it on for 3 days, because a lot of times it's on the front door. Now, every time that buyer strikes, like clunk, 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 like it's, you also don't want them cutting your lockbox off. It's a $180 lockbox. And they do that. I don't like it here. They'll rip out your signs, they do, So if you gotta tell the buyers, I will have that sign removed within 48 hours. If you don't like it in there, please pull it out and put it on the side of the house. They will come get it. But a lot of times they're like, oh, firewood. And the next thing you know, you're like, and then they'll charge you $100 for a post that was like $30. So it's just a whole big hassle. But, so then you're gonna pick up your lockbox and your sign, and then you're gonna give them a closing gift if that's something that you guys wanna incorporate into your business. I, myself, with closing gifts, I wait till after, like I don't do it the day of closing, they records, I give them the key, and I send them to come by over the weekend, and then I'll bring them a pizza, because I know they're moving in, and I'll say, oh, here's a closing gift, and I just make a whole big thing. They have kids, I'll bring them something for each bedroom, or I just do something special for them. I don't go overboard. It's the little things. So when you're working with your clients all month long or whatever, you're getting to know them. Oh, we're gonna go to dinner, this is our favorite place, the kids love this, blah, 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 blah. So listen to that. If you wanna incorporate closing gifts, you don't have to, but if you do something like that. And then real quick, I'm gonna go over the buyer's agent side of it. It's pretty much the same as, well, it's not, but it is, but. So with buyer's agent, your job, pre-approval, get the property criteria that they want and set them up with an MLS search. Then you're gonna schedule showings, that's your job. Your job is to view homes with them. When they find a home they like, before you make an offer, try to call the HOA. Because what that listing agent put in there might not be correct, okay? So you're gonna wanna do that and just say, how much are the fees? Is there a sit-in lid? Is there a buyer setup fee? Do they get, how much for keys for the pool? How do they get the gate remote? How much is all that? Just get all that information, so they have it ahead of time. Then you're gonna call your lender before writing your offer, because you want the lender to give you the time frames and give you an estimate. They'll ask, hey, can you send me the MLS sheet? I wanna give them an estimated monthly mortgage. And they'll do the taxes, insurance, everything for that specific property. They're like, hey, with this HOA and everything, this is what your monthly payment's gonna be. Sometimes that's a make or break. You don't wanna be under contract and then they're like, oh, I can't afford that. Do it ahead of time. And then once everybody says it's good, you write the offer. Then you send the offer over to the listing agent. And I did not give you that one. I forgot that one. That one was, hello listing agent, and then don't write love letters. I know we talked about this before where I have a buyer and seller and they just love the house and they have 3 kids and that, like, don't give them any specifics. Showed your house, it was a beautiful listing, my buyers love it. Here's the offer, please call with any questions, let me know that you've received it, thank you so much. That's it. Because you can get in a lot of trouble with those little fluffy love letters, so you don't want to do that. So you want to just make it very plain and simple, and I can get you, there's a email that Tim has specific for, he sent it to me and I didn't print it out now I think about it, but he's, that you just send it over with your offer, and you're just going to attach your RPA. You're not going to give that in the pre-approval letter or proof of funds. You're not going to give them your duties owed or wire, then nothing. It's just your pre-approval, your bank statement, if that's the case, if they're paying cash, and then your RPA. That is it. Don't send them anything else.
So what if the buyer wants to put together like a little bio to sing along with it?
Tell them no.
Okay.
Tell them no. And you can say,
Because my best friend does that every single time, and she's like, that's why I get these houses. I'm like, okay.
We used to do a ton.
Yeah.
But then we all started getting in trouble because of, ethical reasons and like, hey, they didn't pick me because I'm this or that, and you were involved in it because you passed that on. So you just wanna, nope, sorry, I can't say, it's against the law to us to do that, we can get in a lot of trouble. So just leave it at that, and then they won't even write it. They can write them a nice little letter later on, and then when they do the walkthrough, leave it on the counter. Thank you so much, this is our family, so you know who's living in the house. That's always a nice one. That people wanna know that the next person's gonna love their house as much as they did. So it's a nice like send off, like just so you know who we are. But anyways, okay. So you're gonna write your offer, send it over to the listing agent. So when I'm sending you guys an email with this, and I'll send you the other one too, because then you can just copy and paste that one too. You're gonna negotiate, do any counters that you have. Then you're gonna open escrow, just like with this. Again, either side can do it. Then you're gonna fill out that contingency timeframe form that we talked about and email it to Tim and myself. Then there's an EMD. You wanna get that EMD within, 24, 48 hours, usually 48 hours, 2 to 3 business days or whatever you write in the contract, but you need to follow up, because title is going to give the buyers a wire instructions, and buyers are like, oh, okay, well, I'll do it on Saturday when I have my next day off. No, you need to do it now, because you can lose the house. There's some agents that won't put it under contract until they receive that EMD, and all the while, they're still accepting offers, and you've just, well, you haven't given me the EMD, now you're out of contract, done. So you don't wanna do that, you wanna your timeframes are very specific, so you follow up. What's going on with the EMD? Call title, call the buyer, and I tell my buyers, once you wire that EMD, please just give me a text so I know, so I can tell the listing agent that, hey, it's already done. Sometimes it takes 24 hours to hit, but I want the listing agent to know that we've done it. You wanna ask for the SRPD and any disclosures, because sometimes the sellers don't give them to you, they just forget, because it's not top of mind. So hey, can we have that SRPD before my home inspector comes out there? Oh yeah, and they'll send it right over. They have to give it to you. Then you're gonna order your home inspection, and you're gonna review the inspection, and then you're gonna drop any repair requests that you have. And then once you guys all agree, you can do addendums for if there's any monies that if they're gonna give you in lieu of repairs. Then you're gonna call the lender and make sure the appraisal was ordered. And then if it comes in low, you're gonna negotiate that appraisal. And then you're gonna do an addendum for pricing on that. Then, once the HOA docs are delivered to you, you have to watch your email. Because I have agents all the time go, oh my God, when did you send that to me? Yeah, last week. I sent it. I'm sorry you guys didn't see it. You're outside your 5 days. They're like, no, they'll review it today. The 5 days is starting out. No, I sent it. I have confirmation I sent it. Sorry. Hope they enjoy it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But you have to be strict. You are representing yourself or you're representing your buyer. So when you get that email, you immediately stop what you're doing and send it over. Don't wait till tonight and then you forget about it. Don't wait till tomorrow, you just cost them a day. And like I said, even though it's 5 days, at 4 days I'm gonna have an answer. So if you cost them a day, now they've got 3 days to review 300 to 500 pages. Not fun. It's not your job to review those HOA docs either, because we'll have, your clients will say, can you just tell me where it is in here? Nope, I'm sorry. Table of contents says this is there, but I always tell them, listen, I get this package for every client. Even my sellers will have it, and they want me to review certain things. I can't. I'm not living there. What matters to me might not matter to you, so it's not a concern to me. I had a guy back out of a place because he had a parrot, and it was noisy, and he was afraid he was gonna get kicked out of a condo complex. I'm like, I would have never thought that. But other people, like, I have my work truck, and it says all vehicles must be parked inside the garage, not in the driveway. My truck doesn't fit in there, I can't buy in here. Like, I don't know that stuff. So it's not your job to review it. You just say, here it is. You have 5 days, but at day 4, I'm gonna contact you. And you put a little notification on your phone to ding you on day 4, I need a response for your HOA docs. So you're gonna start ding, 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 ding. If you're really good at it, like the minute something's done and has to have a response time, you need to put a calendar note in there for yourself to respond to it. So then they deliver that, then you make sure that the seller sends that certificate of resale, so then you can fill it out to say when you received it, and then you send it back. You're always gonna constantly just check in with the lender. Hey, how's it going? Anything you need? Are you having trouble getting any documents from your buyers? Because even though that's their client too, sometimes the buyer's like, oh, I'll get to it. Oh, I can't find it. Your job is like, hey, I was talking to the lender today, and they said they're still missing this. Can you work on getting that? You and the lender are gonna work hand in hand on getting this pushed through. Then you're gonna order the home warranty and send it to title, and then the buyer, always give a little confirmation sheet to the buyer so they know what the company is. They're gonna forget. It's gonna have their contact information, who the escrow officer is. It's a whole sheet they email you, so just send it back out to them. Then you're gonna complete the walkthrough and the form. And you just gotta fill out the whole form, and then you're gonna have your buyer sign it and then send it over to the listing agent, so they have it. Then you're gonna review that settlement statement. Title's gonna say, hey, the lender got us all the documents, we're ready to schedule a signing. They'll send you the settlement statement, you'll review it, say, yep, we're good to go, or hey, this needs to be changed. And then they'll say, okay, can you book us for tomorrow at 9 a.m.? You're gonna go down there with your clients, and then you're going to sign, so click on schedule, so then you're gonna, at that point, when you schedule that time frame to sign, if it's 2 or 3 days out, you're gonna tell your buyers, scheduled to turn on, we're scheduled to record on the 29th, I need you to schedule for your utilities to be turned on the 30th. I always say the very next day, because there might be okay, hey, it's actually not gonna be till the 1st because of the weekend or whatnot, but you wanna get it done. And then you go to the signing with them, and you notify everybody that recorded, and then you pick up the keys and deliver the present. So when you pick up the keys, I always say, congratulations, it's recorded. I can be there at 5 o'clock to get you the keys. Does that time work? What not? And then I text the agent, congratulations, it's been a pleasure working with you. We will be there to pick up the keys out of the lockbox at 5 p.m. You do not want that listing agent to go over 3 hours later and pick up the lockbox, and now you don't have keys. You can't get the keys, now you're stuck driving around town trying to pick up keys when they should have been at the house. Just tell them, hey, this is what time I'm getting the keys. What do you want me to, when is the sign being removed? Sometimes we're my agent. We have to work together, because sometimes we forget, if the sign's been there for 3 months, I forget that it's on there. So like, hey, what do you want us to do? When are you guys removing the sign? Oh, I'm calling that right now, or it should be done by tomorrow, or whatnot. I never remove my signs as a listing agent until after it records, because anything can happen. People can go to jail, they can die, they can open up a credit card, they lose the loan, and then I gotta pay to have that sign put back on there. I just leave it on there, nothing gets changed, and do not put a sold sign on your sign, okay? I think we've already gone over that. But when you put sold, nobody's gonna call you, so just leave your sign there the way that it is, and then when it records.
It's not sold until it's sold.
Exactly, it's just under contract. I've had one that fell out 3 different times already. It's like, oh my God, but you never want to put sold, because your job as a listing agent is to grab buyers off that sign. They're not going to call if it says sold, so leave it open. So with that, any question? Oh, I also included in this here, I like to include that. So every file you start, you're going to have a big manila envelope, and that's where you're going to put all your files in there. This is what I staple to the front of mine, or the inside actually, and then that way all my information is there. Like this one, this starts with the listing and it goes down to the closing. So if you didn't take the listing, don't worry about that, but then it'll come down in here, offer accepted, counter offer, addendums. I write the dates of when all that happened. When they deliver the SRPD, when the buyer signed the SRPD, home inspection and request for repairs, put your dates in there. Also, when I have the manila envelope, I open it up, and on the inside, I'll put title company, who the escrow officer is, their phone number, their email, the lender, and the listing agent. I put all that information, and then I take a picture of it, and I keep it with me.
So can you send us this form so we don't have to type it in?
Well, yeah, I give them to you guys over and over and over again. But, yeah, so what?
As an email.
You're not gonna wanna type it, you're gonna wanna print that one and then staple it to your folder, because every time, this is not all gonna happen at the same time. So you're gonna keep it in the folder, and then you're like, okay, great, I got the duties owed, so then I sign that back. And then you're like, okay, I got the SRPD, and then you're like, okay, I got that. But if you keep it on your computer, it needs to be with your file. This one needs to be with your file, so you know exactly what date and everything. And it also helps with keeping you guys used to writing dates and times, keeping notes, because your job is to keep notes about everything. So just write all of that, but yeah, I'll get all of the other stuff in the Word document, so you just copy and paste and send it. And then as long as everybody filled out or signed in the sheet, the sign-in sheet, and then that's how I know who I'm gonna email all this to. But any questions about anything? Yes.
So I just ordered my open house signs. What about that for sale sign? Like, do we have to order and buy
What for sale sign?
the actual, that you put in front of the house?
Oh yeah, so on the thing, yes. I have 3 of those and I rotate them out. Actually I have 5 of those, but then they get damaged. With the wind to start picking it.
Right.
So get the heaviest metal one that you can. Some of them they'll try to sell you the perforated one. Don't. You get the kids that are walking home from school and they're swinging it, and then the rocks, and they just get so banged up. So you might wanna start with like 2, because if you have 2 listings at the same time, you know, normally it only takes, you know, 2 to 3 days to get them in their turnaround time, if you do them local. We have some local people, that lady I use is down in Henderson, she does it at her house, and then she's like, how's this proof? Great, it'll be here in my driveway tomorrow at 3. I'm like, okay, you know, I just go down there and pick it up, and she's got signs everywhere out front, I don't know how her HOA doesn't complain, but yeah, I mean, it's super quick. The open house signs are a little bit more, but that's an investment.
Right.
I did that right at the very beginning too, and I still have them to this day.
But what about like the post?
Suppose you order through a different company.
And then you have someone store it, or do I have to
They
put
do
this
it.
in my?
Yeah, so I use a company called C&C Signs.
Okay.
And so I just go online and I order a signpost, and it just says signpost, flyer box, what date, the address, and then my information, and then they just go out there and then I hit submit, and then I either have your credit card on file, I call up, I don't know my credit card anymore, but I call up, I said, I just wanna pay for that, I pay for it, and within 48 hours it's out. They don't tell you when they've come, your clients are like, hey, I saw the post is out there, they're like, great. Or if you have somebody that lives in the house, you just tell them, hey, I'm gonna leave my sign here, when they hang the post, you put the sign on fire.
Okay, cool.
But
So it's just a service that goes out
It's a
there
service.
per
Mhm.
listing.
So then that's when I was
And then they
saying,
pick it up and
yeah,
they
you
make
have
it.
to, once it records,
Yeah.
that's when you call up and say, hey, can you, or well, you don't even call up, if it's C&C, you just go online and say remove post, and then within 48 hours they'll come, but sometimes the buyers, like I said, pull them out of the ground, and you don't want that either, but I was gonna say something,
You guys have extra signs in the office, 'cause if we had like a listing or something.
like open house signs,
Open house or.
or the signs you're gonna want for yourself, if it's your
Okay.
listing, cause that's how they're gonna call you.
Okay.
We don't, if they call here, they're gonna go to a general mailbox, and nobody's gonna get it.
Yeah,
That's how you're gonna get your people. So, and they're inexpensive, they're like $40, something like that, you know, and then, I was gonna say about the signposts, I forget, but, yeah, so, there's got so much information, I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, so if you guys need anything, you have any more questions about this, just let me know.
so
I'll
talking
email
about
you.
the signs, like listing signs, do you have a preferred company that?
We have a couple of them, there's, D signs, I know on, if you go on, whatever, but then there's
Is
that
it a
lady.
zone? Is
Yeah,
it-
it's in
okay.
zone, and then there's that, but they're not local. Then there's the lady that I have that's local. There's a couple of companies, even like C&C, they do the post, but then you can order to have signs made up.
Okay.
And because we're such a large brokerage, most of them have our font and our Realty One and all of that logo in there, and they'll know exactly, because you wanna put your license number there, your name, your phone
Right.
number, email. Steven just did a QR code, like, brings him to his, you know, website. I mean, it was perfect, you know, so however you guys wanna do it, but then just send us a kind of a copy so we can just make sure, because we would hate for you to order and say, oh my gosh, we forgot your license number, and then all of a sudden you have to reorder that, because they're not gonna remake it for free. So it just becomes very costly, so,
Yeah, I used Designs, and I gave them my license number, put it on the thing, and then when they sent me back the proof,